Sticking with the golf now, let's bring you some of the post-event reaction. McGinley, Joe and Nathan here. All our Ryder Cup coverage is brought to you in association with Now TV. Only pay for the days that you want and stream all 10 Sky Sports channels with the Now TV Sky Sports Pass. Here is Paul McGinley, Joe and Nathan from Paris discussing Europe's emphatic 2018 Ryder Cup win.
Strange week for Rory McIlroy. He played all 5 matches yet again at a Ryder Cup, ended up winning 2 points, but lost here in 18 against Justin Thomas earlier. A lot of missed putts again. What was your overall sense of his performance?
I thought he was tired, a bit like the American team. He was jaded. I think he didn't come in the same vibrancy. I thought there was a little bit of a hangover from his performance on the last round of the FedEx last week, you know, when he played with Tiger in the last round and it went badly for him and he had a poor day. I think he came in on a little bit of a low on the back of that, and he nearly got going. Sergio dragged him up on the second day and he nearly got going, and then he kind of flatlined a little bit again. I thought he played decent today. He didn't play great. He was up against, this guy, Justin Thomas, he is a superb competitor. Not just is he a brilliant ball striker and a big hitter and all that, he has got a heart of a lion. Watch this guy go forward in the game.
He's chipping in and everything.
He's competitive. You know, when I talk about competitive instincts, I can sense it, I can watch it. I'm looking for the moments. I'm looking for moments, big moments, and if they can do it. And there was none bigger moment leading the team out when the Ryder Cup was a little bit rocky from a European perspective and looking good for an American. This guy had to win his game. He had the honour on 17. McIlroy made an unbelievable up and down on 17. This guy stood up in the 18th and he took out driver. And I said to the guys, I was watching it in the green room, and I said, this is not the play. There's nowhere to go with driver for a guy at this distance. And he hit it down a sliver of fairway and said, okay, now let's see what you got, Rory. That's what forced the issue. When I talk about match play moments, that forced the issue on Rory. That put a massive amount of pressure on Rory. And Rory made the right call. 3 wood was the right call for him. It wasn't to follow him up with the same drive. It was a 3 wood. But, you know, the pressure was huge at that moment, and a leak to the right, plug lie, and game over.
Cruel and unfair as it is, one of the lasting images of McIlroy from this Ryder Cup will be him turning to the crowd and saying, I can putt. Heat of the moment, he might regret doing that. I mean, the putter was a bit of an issue today. We just thought it was noticeable. If someone had shouted Rory McIlroy in the crowd, you can't drive the ball, he wouldn't have even risen to it. But it's clearly
the crowd would have been laughed out of the place.
Well, yeah, but it's clearly a sore point. It clearly was something that really got his back up, and, you know, funny enough, it kind of distracted him almost yesterday. But in broad terms, what's he going to do in the off-season now, Paul, do you think, with his game?
Well, that's with Rory. His putting stats have been actually pretty good. He's pretty good. I mean, you look at his stats, and I've trawled through all of these stats. I do them all the time, particularly for this Ryder Cup for all the 12 players on the European team. His putting stats are actually really good compared to where they've been in previous years. He holds some good putts. There's not a whole lot wrong with his putting. What Rory has lost compared to what he had before, I call it pointy elbows, is that competitive edge that he's had earlier in his career. It's not quite the same. The other guys have raised the bar, they're putting it up to him. Guys like Justin Thomas, we just saw it on the 18th hole there. You know, he hit the drive as long as Rory McIlroy would do. Rory used to dominate guys and intimidate them with his driving. So the other guys have raised the bar, and that's made things difficult for Rory. He hasn't got his head around that yet, and he hasn't, you know, and I keep saying, you know, those pointy elbows, that's what he had. He has that instinct in him. It's lying dormant at the moment. It's hard to say it's lying dormant because look at the year he's had. I mean, there's only probably 2 or 3 guys in the whole of golf who've created more world ranking points than Rory McIlroy this year. His level of consistency is probably better than it's ever been. He's just not winning as much as he often did.
Kill him with our expectations, I guess.
Well, there's a lot of that goes around him with the expectations. There's no doubt about that. And playing number 1 today, he had a massive amount of pressure on him. A lot of expectation on him playing out in that number 1 position.
17.5 to 10.5 is how it finished up at the 42nd Ryder Cup. It's been a long week, Nathan Murphy. We are sitting here where they do their interviews. So we've just had the victorious European team in here and a more somber US team in here doing their press conferences. If anyone's worried, I'm sure you would have seen it by now, Phil Mickelson did not throw Jim Furyk under the bus. So that's a big relief for Jim. He's fared better than Tom Watson 4 years ago. A comprehensive win in the end for Europe, Nathan. There's a real sense that for one, amongst other things, but for one, the US team never seemed to get to grips with this course.
No, which in a way is strange because after the opening morning 4 balls on Friday, they led 3-1. They put out their stars early on and they delivered. And then it all just went horribly wrong. Europe won 8 matches in a row, unprecedented run. And it was a case on that Friday afternoon that they started to lose holes very quickly. So they went 1 down and next thing you knew they were 4 down. And that was a pattern that developed throughout the 3 days. So that then asks the question, was there a little bit of character missing at times when things got tough? Why couldn't they respond?
Yeah, it's very interesting. I mean, one of the reasons given is that the wind kicked up certainly from Friday afternoon on, and then the whole thing just got away from them. And I mean, it's an extraordinary thing, really, because we all went into this Ryder Cup feeling that the course, I mean, so we both thought the US would probably prevail. You thought it'd be a cakewalk. I thought the course might bring it back a touch in favour of the Europeans, but not to this extent. So for Thomas Bjorn, I mean, pretty much every decision he made has been vindicated massively, from the pairings, you know, Hatton and Casey, and of course Molinari and Fleetwood. I mean, Molinari and Fleetwood, Mollywood are the story
Boys.
of the tournament. The way he stuck with Rory and didn't make a story out of the Rory McIlroy situation that Friday morning, no birdie with per Thorbjorn Olesen, and he stuck with Rory for the afternoon, didn't panic, and nursed Rory back to a respectable Ryder Cup. You know,
2 points.
2 points is fine. And then the way he set up the course. I mean, everything Bjorn did on the face of it, everything that Bjorn did that we can kind of say, well, that was Bjorn, it seems to have come off pretty well.
The wildcards delivered. Sergio Garcia is now the most successful Ryder Cup player of all time. And there was some raised eyebrows when Bjorn said at the time of the wildcard announcement that Sergio was going to be the heartbeat, the Sevi of this team. And you're kind of like, that's not really Sergio. But it seems actually he was a bit. That he was able to take people under his wing. And that's what you wanted. And when Rory was going and finding it tough, Sergio was there for him. Sergio helped him along, as did Ian Poulter. Every single one of this European team won a point. Whereas you look at the American wildcards, they failed miserably. 3 of the 4 didn't win a single point. Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, Bryson DeChambeau, not a single point between them. It's quite remarkable how they underachieved.
On the one hand, so say take Mickelson, who was the big flop of the whole thing. On the one hand, there are comparisons to be made with Mickelson and Sergio. And Mickelson's won a WGC this year, so arguably he'd had a bit more form more recently than Sergio, but neither had much form. Sergio comes here, lights it up. Phil said that I think he shot a 63 about a month ago, and since then he's had no game. And I was on the range yesterday. Time moves very slowly here. Feels like 6 weeks ago. I was on the range yesterday. Last night, Phil, who didn't play at all yesterday, was on the range. Just him and his caddy and his coach. And Phil turned to the coach at one stage and said, we're going to have to start from scratch here. Swing's gone, basically. And so Furyk can feel a bit unlucky that the form of someone like Furyk collapsed, and he's looking over at Sergio, who's turned into Superman again, and can think, ugh. Now, you could certainly say to Furyk, well, this course was obviously not going to suit Phil. Like, that is a criticism you could still make. We got an interview with Paul McGinley, and he was saying, like, you look at Zach Johnson or Matt Kuchar, who could have been picked, and McGinley as a European was very glad they weren't.
And it is all hindsight, because if Jim Furyk had stood up 3 weeks ago and picked Zach Johnson as one of his picks, even though Johnson had shown a little bit of form and would have been so well suited to playing this course, he would have been laughed out of the joint. Everybody wanted Phil Mickelson to be here. There was an assumption that he would do what Sergio did, that he would find a little bit of something. Even today, we spent the morning watching Phil on the range, slicing it, and his coach standing over him. This is half an hour before tee time, still looking for something. And even still, a bit of you inside is going, maybe he'll just turn it on.
Just do it. And the amazing dynamic of Phil here, honestly, a few slices in there by professional standards. Me and Murphy have hit worse slices, it has to be said. And right next to him, Francesco Molinari, serene, calm, Dave Alred there, and they're just going through their routine. Nothing needs tweaking or fixing, and it's like, it's almost not fair that he has to go out and play Molinari in front of the whole world. I guess the other point to make is Tiger. You know, like, Tiger has dominated the week in 2 different ways. He, is heralded for the first half of the week. Every player in here has asked about him, and then he's 0 for 4. I mean, Tiger Woods has won 1. He's been on the winning side of a Ryder Cup once in his entire career. Tiger Woods. He said up here on the stage about a half hour ago, honestly, yes, I'm a bit tired. I've played 7 weeks out of 9.
Which is totally fair. And he looked like he looked at the start of the year. He looked sort of actually like he looked when he was back injured, when he always felt like it was an old man and it was all a struggle.
Very deliberate in his movements.
Like, the sheer emotional high of winning the Tour Championship last week surely took a huge amount out of him. And the very fact that 11 of that American team were playing in Atlanta last week at the Tour Championship again just meant they came here, they were jet lagged, they're out in course Tuesday morning. Listen, pampered billionaires, millionaires, you've no sympathy for them. But this is high elite sport. You need to be mentally right. And listen, the course is the big talking point, I think, out of this week. Phil, Tiger, all of that. is that the course was a huge success.
Yeah.
It was interesting golf. It's not what American golf seems to want.
No, it's true. They want birdies and low rough. Spieth, it seems. Well, we have to be careful. We don't know. Okay, there's rumblings that Spieth and Reed haven't played together, and it seems maybe that's more coming from the Spieth side. He was asked about it in the press conference, and Reed was sitting all the way down there, and Spieth was sitting about here, and Reed sort of looked down and said, "Hey guys," when a journalist asked why they hadn't played together. They were so brilliant together a couple of years ago, and Spieth gave a reasonable answer. Furyk tried to interject and say, we made our decisions and we're happy with our pairings, but maybe that's a slight issue. It's not the reason they lost, but it was another thing, I suppose. I guess we're at the point of kind of, we will talk about this at length for a couple of weeks. There's loads going on. To sum up the Ryder Cup, I would put it to you, it wasn't a great one, because a great one you feel has to be close. It was obviously a great win for Europe. It was very entertaining across the first day in particular. First day was incredibly good. If we'd had that drama and that, the Europe up at 3-1, then lose 3-1, then come out and win the foursomes 4-0, that kind of drama the first day was an extraordinary Ryder Cup day. I mean, really as good as anything. But you would have to say, once it went 10-6 yesterday, and there was never a real genuine sense that Team USA were going to come back into it, you can't really say it was a great Ryder Cup, although so many things about it were great.
Yeah, probably sums it up. There was Tiger's Eagle today, which was sort of around a half hour or so, where it looked like America may win the first 6 matches and could well turn this on her head, but that was a very, very short, fleeting moment. The Europeans they just delivered.
Yeah.
They just know how to play Ryder Cup golf. Emotionally, I know it's this sort of out there thing that is hard to grasp, but Ian Poulter and Sergio Garcia, there's something within them.
Ian Poulter bet the world #1 today. He beat him.
That shouldn't happen.
No, that shouldn't happen in a million years. Yeah, the crowd were great. Course was great. The weather was fantastic.
It was an unbelievable venue. As an event, it was a massive success for Le Golf National, for France, for Paris.
The stands, I mean, the whole structures of how tournament golf is for the spectators now is getting better year on year. And as it was, the real highlight for me, of course, was sharing an Airbnb with Nathan Murphy.
Just gets better and better and better.
Thank you for booking an Airbnb where we had to hold the shower head. That was the highlight for me.
What was your problem with that?
I'm not.
You're big time now. I'm not holding my own shower head. Go back to your college days, Joe.
Trying to wash and rub.
We don't need a graphic. We don't need a graphic. It was fine. It's fine.
It was fine.
We had a lovely time in Versailles.
We did. No, it was real. It was lovely to go back and reminisce about two years ago.
2 years ago, yeah.
So that's it. 17.5 to 11.5. And it's now going to be 29 years before the Americans will have a chance to win on European soil, and we go back to America in 2 years' time and see if presumably Padraig Harrington can mastermind a win in Whistling Straits. So Nathan, thank you.
Thank you, Joe.